I am very happy to do this session with technical experts from various industries. I have with me Mr. Pallav Paliwal, Head Cloud Architecture of Bharti Airtel, Mr. Himanshu Gupta, Country Manager, Telecom, Media and Entertainment from HPE India, Mr. Sudhir Kayamkulangara, Principal Engineer from Cisco, Mr. Bhudutt, Jangid, Consultant, Regional Field Systems Engineer from Ciena, and we are very happy to be discussing a very important topic, which is 5G Edge and the network slicing ecosystem, which is evolving very soon, and India will be, and Indian enterprise will get the benefit of all this. So the first thing I would like to say is that in these type of businesses are obviously led by technology. The business equation comes a little later down the road. First, the technological innovations and interventions start in an organization or in the ecosystem, or in fact lead and drive it. So I think therefore this session is very important. Though I am more from a business background than a technological background, but I think it is technology which really leads these type of disruptions in the environment. After the pandemic, the world has actually pressed the reset button. As we all know, a lot of work of large companies like such as yours will also happen work from home, or if I may use the word, work from anywhere. I mean, you could be sitting in your, tomorrow it will happen, you could be sitting in your village, maybe in Bihar or in Assam or Kerala, wherever, and the work will continue uninterrupted. All types of work, you know, the most complex systems will work. Now, in order to do that, as you know, India is right now in the phase of a 4G, sort of a, I would say midway with we're in 4G, and most small towns and community service center, we're still in 3G. So we have a long way to go. But that does not mean we do not open the curtains for 5G, which is really the session which we're going to discuss about today. And what has happened with the pandemic is that it speeded up the innovation that we are going to discuss very shortly. And this inflection point where the world would leapfrog into the 5G era. So the pandemic has really created like is catapulting us into that. Just like the Indian consumer will consume many things on the mobile interface, because the large number of B2C, although this is a B2B discussion, but it's B2B2C, large number of B2C consumers will consume everything on the mobile sort of handset, because laptops are expensive, desktops are expensive, multiple devices is not something which everybody in our country can afford. Only the elite can afford it. And you may not be also in a situation, you may be, even the senior people like you, I'm just guessing 30% of your time will be outside the office, either going to a meeting or in the car or in the airport or in the railway station. So anyway, there will be a lot of consumption on the mobile interface, whichever way, both for enterprises as well as for personal consumption. So I'm just given a little bit of background and setting, and what I would really like to do is that I would like to handle this entire important session by having two rounds initially, quickly. So I will request one person to start with. I will just mention his name. I would request you to quickly say a few words about yourself, and then there are 4 or 5 questions which have been already circulated. You could choose any one of those questions, or you could choose to lead the discussion using what is your core area. For example, HPE's core area is infrastructure. Bharti Airtel, I come from an operator background, is obviously putting the whole piece together and beaming it to the enterprise. And then Cisco is the master connector of everything with all their high-end router technologies, etc. And Ciena has, I just learned, has connected more than 320,000 kilometers bandwidth. So your own areas of operation, you would highlight given the context of this topic. And without any further ado, I'd like to start with Mr. Pallav Paliwal, Head Cloud Architecture, Bharti Airtel. Over to you, Pallav.
Hi, thanks, Sukanta. I think thanks for setting up the context. So myself, Pallav Paliwal, I am leading the cloud strategy for Bharti Airtel. If you talk about, my work, basically, I am taking care of the open cloud strategy, how the cloud can play important role, obviously coming out from 4G to 5G, how the disaggregation in the clouds are happening, how the clouds are getting orchestrated, how the multi-tenancy of the applications like core, RAN, and all basically are sitting on these cloud infrastructure. And then obviously working towards from the 5G perspective, microservices and all those containerized part, and getting these validation done successfully to cater the real benefits, which will obviously, reap from the 5G. Thank you.
So I think, Pallavji, thank you for setting the context, and especially in the context of that you're an operator, you're one of the largest operators in the space, probably the largest. And I will now request Mr. Himanshu Gupta, Country Manager, Telecom, Media and Entertainment, HP India, to start his discourse.
Thank you, sir. Very warm welcome to all the panelists. We have some esteemed guys here coming from high technology domain. So really glad to be part of it. I've been working with HP for the last almost 2 decades in various roles, from sales to channel management and to strategy, and to most recently managing the acquisition space and mid-market space for us, for HP. My brief introduction also includes talking about what I'm currently focused on, and that's around how HP can literally do well in the telecom space, a role which is very, very important for the company in the given era of 5G. If I look back, what HP has done in the telecom domain over the last 30 years, I think we've played a very significant role, both from the infrastructure standpoint as well as the software side. We were the first NFE commercial deployment partner in the world. We did the first NFE infrastructure vendor in the world. One of the 2 initiatives which HP took and led the market. We also have currently 50 software solutions designed specifically to deliver services, manage and operate the telecom services and networks. On the overall telco presence, we have close to 300 telco customers spread across 160 countries, and we have 50 open projects currently supporting 5G initiatives across the globe. So that is a level of breadth of solutions and expertise which HP has brought onto the field of telecom, and I'm really look forward to a fruitful interaction with all the panelists here.
Hey, Himanshu, thank you very much. And it's pleasantly surprised to learn how deep you're in 5G globally with 600 telcos. That is huge. So I would now request Mr. Sudhir, Principal Engineer, Cisco, to start his discourse, please.
First of all, thank you for having me here. And I'm very glad to be part of this panel discussion. I'm from Cisco's service provider routing group. Primarily, my focus was in the higher end routing systems, starting with our CRS, NCS6K, and bunch of other routers, which is deployed in majority of the SPs in the world. Most recently, I have shifted the focus to SP access. That's where we believe major transformation is going to happen in coming years, where access is getting much more smarter, intelligent, and all the things that we talked about here, the disaggregation, the open world, ORANs, edge computing, all of these things are going to define the next generation access. And this is what my current focus is. Thank you.
I think very well said, Sudhirji, because access is everything, especially in a large, complex country like India. We have small towns and cities, the contours, the geography, the mountains, it makes it really, really challenging. And that you're focusing on access, and more smarter and intelligent you make it, we will require less spectrum to be consumed. We know how expensive spectrum is, and all the operators are kind of they're financially in a major crunch because the huge spectrums they have to pay up, apart from the other tax outages they have to be involved in. So I want to now request Mr. Bhudutt, Jangid, Consultant, Regional Fixed Sales System Engineering, Ciena, to please tell us what your organization is doing in this subject.
Thanks, Sukanta, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Cyber Media and entire this Telecom Leadership Forum, and to the panelists for inviting me for this panel discussion and giving me opportunity to present my views. My name is Bhudutt Jangid, Consultant and Solution Architect at Ciena. With 15 years of experience, I work with the different OEM name Huawei and ECI, and now working with Ciena. So I'm responsible to design new innovative IP optical network using Ciena's cutting edge technology, including you can say the coherent modem optics and the photonic technologies for Indian telcos and ISPs and hyperscaler networks. At Ciena, we believe to solve a customer problem in more simpler and the faster way. And we are leading, like, over the 2 decades, this innovative coherent optical modem technologies with higher line rates, where we brought the spectral efficiencies into it, starting from the 100 gig per wavelength line rate to 200 gig to 400 gig. Now Ciena is leading this with 800 gig of line rates, and we are sending the maximum fiber. We are taking out maximum capacity from the fiber, so no need to roll out the new fibers. We can leverage our existing fiber assets, and these large massive internet are deployed on the submarine cables. Most of them, you name the cable, the cable, the both end of the cable are connected with the Ciena's equipment and Ciena's technology. So with that, I'll complete my introduction. Thanks to Sukanta.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bhudutt. So I just want to dive into the main topic now. So the first question we thought we quickly discuss among all of us, and anybody could start with, is would telcos and hyperscalers dig their feet deeper into the competitive battlefields, or would they give the industry a new phase of consolidation and alliances? Obviously, in technology, this is the subject we're discussing. So if anybody wants to say, give his comments on this topic.
So let me take this,
yes,
let me present my views here. So we need to understand the hyperscalers and the telcos. So let's understand the hyperscalers landscape. So they have their own strength and their own challenges. Like when we talk about their strength, no doubt their application development capabilities are very high, and their application development time is very low. So they are leading this AI and automation piece like anything. Their massive public cloud infrastructure with their global presence into it, with their connectivities and their global operational efficiency, they attract the developers and the enterprise to come to them for the massive rollout with the massive scale, like with no time. But other side, they also have the challenges with them, like the government licensing approval type of things, and their last mile connectivities. Like they are not present in India. If we take example, they are present in tier 1 or tier 2 towns, not tier 3, 4, tier 5 towns where there are 90% of population reside. So this is hyperscalers landscape. Once we talk about this telcos landscape, they have the strength in terms of their strong track records in network innovations, their infra benefits. They have telco grade backhaul and the fiber network to provide those stringent SLAs, their massive network, their vast experience in the network operation capabilities, and the last but not the least, with their last mile connectivity, they are present in almost every second or third street of the cities. Their strong relationship with the public and the government ecosystem, their better go-to-market strategy because of their presence. Again, they also have some challenges with the like spectrum challenges with them, and regulatory challenges in terms of this network equipment, and considering the delivery of quality of services, their flat revenue forecast challenges. So considering the hyperscalers challenges and strength, and telco strengths and challenges, one thing is slightly coming out, hyperscaler will have slightly bigger pie out of this value chain, but they need the telcos support or to connect the last mile consumer effectively and quickly. So they will be needing so I can see this will be a more towards a collaboration journey, and not we can see we are seeing at a global level also, we are seeing these collaboration and these consolidations are happening. Same way we are seeing in India also, now there are these collaboration and these alliance are happening. So I am taking my take on this. There will be a new phase of consolidation, and this tendency model will evolve more, and they will work in a collaboration way.
I would just like to
Yeah,
add to,
yeah.
sorry, please go ahead,
Go,
Mr. Sukanta.
please go ahead. You go ahead. You go ahead, please.
Yeah, I would just like to add to what Mr. Bhudutt had said, that yes, this is going to be a race with collaboration and competition. Collaboration definitely, because as it rightly said, the last mile is not with the hyperscalers, so that's an easy route for them to partner and collaborate. And if you look at the Indian scenario, specifically in the last 1 year, we have seen tie-ups of AWS with the likes of Airtel, and you have Google's and Amazon's, Google and Facebook, investing in Reliance Jio to get a share of the digital economy which they're going to put up in India. And then if you look at the some grown markets like in US, South Korea, Germany, and Japan, you have the likes of AT&T and Verizon's very closely working with the AWS. And you look at the offerings which have been come up from these hyperscalers over the last 2 years. Uh, you have AWS Wavelength, you have Azure Edge Zones, and you have Microsoft Azure Stack. All this coming together to give the platform level of capability for these players, and leverage the data centers of the telcos to collaborate, so that the entire experience, the platform experience of public cloud providers can be given at the edge data centers, which is going to be the reality to make the 5G a success story in the market. Especially when we have players, the telcos looking forward to a mix of NSA and SA, rollout of 5G. So initially you will have a 4G coexisting with a 5G RAN and NSA, standard going forward. It will be very relevant for both these telcos as well as the hyperscalers to collaborate and take it forward. But just one final point, for some low, capacity telcos or the smaller telcos, the way would be give a bit more leverage to the likes of the hyperscalers. But telcos who are big and powerful and have a lot of investments with them, they would like to keep themselves up the value chain, and that's where their ability to leverage the third part of the story, which is beyond the infra, beyond the operations, which comes to the applications. I think that's the area whoever takes the higher pie by building those collaborative platforms. And for example, Rakuten in Japan is doing that very well over the last 1.5 years. And I was just hearing their CTO, Mr. Tarek, talk about the innovations they have done on the RAN side, as well as on the building a community platform marketplace. So that is some area where I would want comments from maybe Mr. Pallav, because he comes from a telco background and he must be thinking in those lines, how to really up the value chain and move up the ladder and become more of somebody who can leverage more from this new initiative.
Yeah, exactly, Himanshu. So it will be obviously a collaborative journey, because the hybrid clouds, the mix of private and public cloud combinations will very much be important. And the kind of automation, the kind of approach, the innovation styles which are coming from these hyperscalers needs to be adapted very fast. If you see the examples of SRE from Google, this has to be basically introduced still in telco, and that's where we are working, how we can basically have the automation of these networks, give a single pane of glass for our users. And you rightly said, it's the need of the hour, because in 5G the clouds will be into a very kind of divided model. It's more like you are sitting in an edge, you want to introduce a 5G use case which needs to be breakout. The development is getting continuously there. So how these breakouts will happen, basically because you need to be somewhere connected into a collaboration of the private and public clouds.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think,
let me add a couple of points to what Himanshu, Pallav, and Bhudutt said. It's very interesting to see that we all are agreeing on something. This is a transformation that one entity cannot drive. Right? Earlier, we had this concept of whether telco drive it, or cloud, CSPs or the hyperscalers drive it, or somebody else drive it. But now there is a common agreement that we all are aligning to, a thing that this is a joint effort. Right? There is no single entity. This is not a telco only problem, right? So if I have to really relook at what had happened in the, Sukanta, you mentioned that it's a technology transformation, right? If you looked at when it happened last time, it was in late 90s when we moved from that voice network to a data network, and that was driven by telco alone. But there were some mishaps after that when the OTT took over some of the share of the telco business, like from the SMS and all those through the over the top messaging services and all, right? There is a learning that, we alone cannot drive it, and we need to partner, right? So now we look at what happens on the ground in reality. In US, AWS is going out and pushing the wavelength along with their hardware into Verizon's location. They are dating, right? Here are my 10 edge locations. We will put the outpost. We will roll out the wavelength service. My cloud is coming to you. That's the way it is viewed. It will work. Honeymoon can be very interesting, right? But as it evolves, what happens is there is an opportunity for the cloud hyperscalers to come and take some of those networking aspects from the telcos. There is a, that's where the conflict is going to happen if there is no fine line. I'm sure Pallav has a view on that. But but what is the real telco advantage here? Telco should try to monetize that. My view is telco is sitting on, like, real expensive beachfront villa, right? That has the right access to the beach, right? And CSPs are like a resort where you have all the facilities, but it doesn't have the beach access. So if you try to merge them together, telco take advantage of the locations, and CSPs or the hyperscalers try to bring in that cloud experience to the edge and draw that fine boundary and partner. That will be a win-win for all. And a third provider also can evolve in this. That can be maybe a utility provider coming with infrastructure as a service as well. But right now, my view is like, they have to collaborate to make it happen. Thank you.
No, I agree with you with your viewpoint. And one of the examples which comes to my mind here is Avarjo is a very high-end VR company. It uses AWS Wavelength for ultra-low latency processing and rendering in Amazon's public cloud. Now, Amazon gets to keep all the data, okay, and which it can use to train its lucrative AI as well as machine learning models. Now, look at who is going to eat the pudding while entire meal is being served. So absolutely right. I think the fine line drawn has to be in relevance to who is going to keep the meatier part with it. And I think that's where the ability to literally drive the ecosystem basis your strengths comes to the forefront. And I think that's where the application piece of the entire ecosystem of collaboration and competition between the hyperscaler and the telco comes to the forefront. So that's my view, Sukanta.
Yeah, I think we have dwelled into all the 4 questions very nicely and integrated it. This is a big challenge which has been there, as was pointed out from the 90s, that the OTT player have taken the eaten the lunch out of the lunchbox of the telcos. It's a common saying. Now, in this key thing, the telcos own the customer, the end customer, which B2C or B2B. Telcos have the billing relationship with the end customer. All the data of the end customer, whether B2B or B2C, flows through the telco. So if you ask me what are the telcos assets, and these are the telcos assets at the end of the day, and of which the biggest asset is the last one, the data which the telcos are collecting. But so are the hyperscalers, because it's now a question of who will use that data in whichever manner. And as rightly pointed out, it's the apps which is the thing. A very interesting analogy I'll give you. There is a company which is very well known. It's called Asian Paints. Everybody knows that company. It's one of the most successful company in the bourses all over the world. If you, they are only quoted in India, but if you see their performance is phenomenal. And that is because way back in 1969, Mr. Chokshi, the then owner of, who's no more, of Asian Paints, he realized that if I have the normal FMCG model of distributor, dealer, and then of course the final retailer from where you and I buy a paint, or any company buys a paint, in the value chain, 60% of the entire value chain is kept by the manufacturer, which is Asian Paints, and 40% is with the trade channel. So he removed the distributor, he removed the dealer, and he's directly started dispatching to the endpoint, which is the shopkeeper. And the shopkeeper says, I don't have any money. Suppose the shopkeeper wants to buy, let's say, for the sake of argument, 900 dabbas a day. I have money only for 300. So he said, no worry. I will send my truck 4 times a day. Now, that was not the main thing. Let me tell you what his mind was and how he could, with so many 50,000 odd dealers all over the country, how could he do that? So he invested in technology. He, at that point in time, imported the supercomputer in India. If you go back a little bit in history, and that computer was not even with the government of India. And he imported it, obviously at a huge cost. He set it up and he put everybody on the technology map, and he knew which dealer what to sell those four times a day. But the important, not even that was the most important thing. The most important thing was he was getting data 4 times a day. He knew the color size, he knew the packs, he knew whatever, etc., etc. Whereas Berger Paints, who would go through the traditional FMD system, they even do that even today, would get to know something after 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So this guy is he's getting his data points from all these 40,000 retailers 4 times a day, and his competitor is getting the data point maybe once in a month. So now you don't need a genius to tell you who is the leader and the boards is. And he also reduced, using technology and data sciences, those days, whatever inventory was available, he reduced his working capital, which is the cash to goods to cash cycle. Berger Paints was, I think, 50 days or 60 days, and ICISA, which is today Exxon Nobel, was about 90 days. He has reduced it to 8 days. 8 days. And all because of data, how he used data. So similarly, just to give you an example of what is happening in India. So it depends on how the hyperscalers and how the telcos are used, their ability to mine the data and use the data for the end B2B customer. I think that is one thing which they have to keep in mind. Otherwise, the hyperscalers will take the lunch away from the lunchbox of telcos, as happened in the 90s, as was pointed out by you people. So I think that is what we have to see, and how, as everybody said, there's a fine line that telcos have to really now get into this thing, and how they will up the value chain. So it has to be a win-win for everybody. I think telcos have had a very bad time for the last, at least telcos in India with low ARPU, for the last, and I come from that background, 10, 15, 20 years. We were when I started my career in 2001 with then Idea Cellular, AT&T, Billa Tata, AT&T Wireless people were there. We were making good money, but not now anymore. I mean, that time, if I tell you, people don't believe it. The postpaid base was 60% and plus, and the rest was the prepaid base. And now look at what happened. The market is completely changed for the better, of course. Now we have more customers and all that. So I'm sorry, this is my little two-piece. But can we talk a little more on how operators and the hyperscalers can tap the multiple segments, and how can they use data better for traffic segmentation, etc., and how could be a win-win situation for both these sets of players? I throw the question open to all of you.
I think one of the areas where telcos primarily have to work is to build some global communities and forums. We have examples of GSMA, then the other ones like 5G Future Forum and all. They are the ones two areas wherein telcos can have a global footprint. Today, Bharti or a Vodafone or Reliance in India may be present in few geographies, but do they have the presence across the globe, like Amazon or Google or Azure? So to bring those ecosystem together and to have the interoperability and the handshakes between multiple operators, I think a forum is very, very important, a global forum. And I think there are several forums, telecom forums, which these telcos are part of. But I think with the era of 5G coming, a big reality in the rest of maybe geography beyond say Japan and Korea and US, where they've already taken some level of maturity. I think this is a time when telcos have to really make their presence felt, just like the hyperscalers at a global scale. And once that happens, their ability to monetize data which is generated, say, from technologies like network slicing and narrowband IoT and few other things. All that can be then leveraged in a much easier way.
Yeah, I think that's a very good observation. That the advantages hyperscalers have is that they have a global presence. I mean, every single operator around the globe uses them, whether it's AWS or the equivalent, or Google or Facebook, etc., etc. And some telcos have taken a little head start, like companies like Reliance, by signing up some strategic agreements, as well as getting equity investment into their company, etc., etc. So the GSMA forum, where I've attended the forum 2-3 times, it's a wonderful place for such a collaboration exercise. And additionally, in addition to being in the forum where all the telcos are members of, there has to be a leadership and a direction. Some people have to give some actual solid examples and lead the way. Some telcos have led the way by giving them equity, for example. I mean, at the end of the day, why not? Similarly, there has to be other methods by which telcos have a larger presence globally. And I do not see any reason why Indian telcos cannot go globally, because, if you have worked in a harsh environment like India with minimal food being ARPU, with very little ARPUs. So you could obviously do much better in the Europes and the US and other places in the world. Yes, and maybe through a collaborative process. You may not get a license or a spectrum of the local government, which is a long process, but through a different way, through apps and through this thing. So that, for example, the entertainment industry, the OTT industry, has completely changed the face of the entertainment industry for traditional movie goers to movie halls. So similarly, the telcos have to kind of put their hats on and think and how to collaborate with the hyperscalers at a national level. Yes, I would like to have the opinions of the other people on this piece.
Yeah, I think let me take a stab at it. Definitely, I completely agree with Himanshu's point that there has to be a telco and industry-wide forum where there should be a common agreement. And there are things happening with HC, NGMN, and all these forums are trying to get to a similar goal. One thing, maybe I see it as transformational that should happen in the telco is like, there is a mindset change of moving from a kind of pipeline model to more like a platform model or an ecosystem model. Because I still believe that, telcos are sitting on top of huge amount of information that hyperscalers have no access to, starting with the handset, right? The information that related to a subscriber or a handset, what is the quality of the service that particular subscriber is getting? That is telco's huge value. And they can try to monetize that, right? Maybe if I can say, for example, have a video content caching at an edge location, and the content caching application, if it can really look at what is the subscriber quality of service, based on that I will tweak the the video bandwidth or the video encoding profile and get a lower bandwidth video to a particular subscriber. These are the, again, we talked about collaborating between hyperscaler and telco. These are the areas where telco can take an upper hand when they collaborate with hyperscalers, right? So that's more like moving from a my only information pipeline model to, let me build a platform together with a hyperscaler by providing these kind of value-add information. That's what I believe, some of these areas where telcos can really drive.
So
thank you.
I echo with Sudhir, like I'm taking a reference. Recently, Airtel Confluence event has happened where Airtel has presented their Airtel digital ecosystem. Sudhir, you said what is rightfully is taking up. They created their business unit as a core, as a platform. Like they merged their all businesses and come up with a core as a system. Then they are taking out platforms all from this core system, like the different platforms. And additionally, on top of that, they're offering their new partnership with the consumers and to the enterprises. Like those can be like all the things we happening around us on our day-to-day basis. And additionally, their extended partnership with the local, or I would say like with the Indian FMCG or the Indian markets where there are the collaboration happening. So rightfully said, they have the whole like big chunk of data, and they are processing the data, and they are coming up with the new revenue opportunities, and they are selling that. They are digging into the data and coming up with the new innovative models for the business opportunities. And this collaboration with the local I would say these FMCG market or the enterprise, and it's coming up as a new way of doing business, and new digital ecosystems coming up all together here within telco environment. So that is my take on this.
Yeah, exactly.
I think,
Sorry, Sukanta, yeah, please.
no, go ahead. You go ahead, please.
Yeah. So, you rightly said, Sukanta, when you mentioned, in the question that the need of the hour is to explore the new opportunities, new revenue opportunities. And if we talk about these new revenue opportunities, which are coming from health industry, from the automotive industry, and the important aspect is how you are going to basically create that slice. And that slice will come from different applications. So if you say that the provisioning, the automation, the application itself, the cloud, how this dynamically needs to be controlled, and it will be sitting into different arenas, like one is sitting into private cloud, one is sitting into some other hyperscalers. So how this collaboration needs to be done and provisioned very smartly will give you the right opportunity to place, so take up an example of any player, like suppose Honda Automotives, wants to launch a infotainment system, for their customers. So you need to think, from different aspects, where exactly the cloud application will sit, the infra will sit, the networking will happen, the provisioning and automation will happen, basically where the SLA of that specific slice will sit. So these all the aspects, which will has to be think from the operator perspective to give the right choice to the customers.
Absolutely. I think that's really well said. I think the right choices have to be there, but we have to also use technology, just like the Asian Paints example, of how to mine the data in a different, now that there are so many other things available since those days to today, how to mine the data which is actually owned by the telcos. I mean, the customer belongs to the telco. Telco has a billing relationship with the customer, and so much of data is flowing in and out of that. And what are the technologies to be used and the applications to be used to use that data more productively, both for the enterprise and for getting telco some revenue, and obviously using the hyperscaler tools for doing that. So that's where I think the collaboration will really be, that if I'm able to use the data, and the data is an ever-changing data. The data is changing every day. For example, like that example of Asian Paints, the dealer is getting 4 shots of distribution, 4 types of data is being collected by the company. Next day, the sales will be different. So there'll be different set of data, etc., etc. So the data is getting changed like by the minute. So the ever-changing data, how do you use that to, and how do you use technology? You can't obviously do it. How do you use machine learning and other things? How do you use technology to mine that data more effectively to the benefit of the enterprise as well as to the benefit of the telcos? Telcos make money, and obviously the hyperscalers using their services, they also make money. So,
and it's today very well applied to each of the use cases. If you see in 5G, the most important use case, which is basically cloud gaming. So people say that, okay, the gamers basically, play the games, but you have to analyze, the new learners needs to analyze how the gamer reacts. So you need to see, from a lot of patterns, how the gamer, how the gun, how the racing styles needs to be, and then only you will be able to give a good product actually to your customers. So that's a strategy which needs to learn, from the data learning and all those machine algorithms, Yeah.
Absolutely. There is another market research which is done by, there's a large toy company in the world called Mattel. Now there are many, but Mattel was one of the early runners of the toy industry. And how they used to design toys is exactly what you mentioned. What they would do is they'll get a bunch of kids in the age of, let's say, 3 to 5 or 3 to 4 or whatever their age group is, into a room, and they will get the camera focused on this guy's face. I'm talking old days with very little technology. And then they'll first show that toy. And depending on the facial expression of the kid, they will say whether this toy is a good toy, not good toy, that's launch it, not launch it. They were using data. They were using the data of the expression of the kid, and they were physically present also. So I'm just saying that absolutely well said. I mean, this is in the gaming industry, which is a very large industry. So we are obviously, as always, I keep telling my good friends in cyber media, whom I'm thankful for inviting me for moderating this session. We are woefully out of time and of a very important topic like this, and with 5 experts. So I would request all of you just quickly to summarize in one sentence, or half a sentence, what how you would like to conclude this session. So may I request Bhudutt to do it right away?
So let to begin with these, one thing we are agreed upon, this will be a collaboration journey that we guys are aligned. That is one submission from my side. Second, by using the slicing technology into it will be the right bet to begin with. And again, the RAN network that will play a larger role into this entire journey towards a 5G. So we need to architect our RAN network along with our transport network and up to the core network in a manner where we can scale better, and we will be agile and flexible to take up the unprecedented growth we are expecting with 5G technology.
Correct. So yeah, Mr. Bhudutt, any good technology, in my opinion, has 3 dimensions. One is it has to reduce the cost of the ecosystem. Are we doing things which reduces the cost of the ecosystem? Number 2, does it enhance the ecosystem, all the players? And number 3, it has to be a green technology, which is well known. So Bhudutt, please go ahead and just your summarizing comments.
So that was from my side, these 3 things what you have just mentioned, and additionally from a network architecture standpoint, my submission was that upcoming network has to be agile, has to be flexible, and has to be scalable, and the cost per bit has to be low, so we can accommodate all the angles of the requirement from the subscriber standpoint, from the telco standpoint, and from the hyperscaler standpoint. So this should be our holistic vision to this journey.
That's great. Sudhir, your views, please.
Sure. Yeah, in my view, this whole 5G and all these advancements that we are talking about, it's not a typical network or the system level upgrade that we have seen in the past. It's a complete transformation and re-architecture of the systems, networks, and the mindset of people. Right, so it's a full retransformation, and the the most sensitive point in this whole transformation is the place where telcos meet the hyperscaler, and that's the sweet spot too for telcos to make money. And so we should really look for how we make those in those spaces and try to see how can we convert that into revenue. That's my thought process.
Excellent. I think that's well said. Because 5G is a complete, it's like making a completely new building. It's not 4 + 1 = 5. Completely new building with, technologies like millimeter waves, massive MIMO, etc., etc. You guys know all that better. So Himanshu ji, your concluding remarks, please.
Yeah, Sukanta, my view is telcos are sitting on a very asset heavy base, and they have that advantage with them. So with the changes in the RAN side, public edge cloud is becoming a reality compared to on-premises clouds. I think this is the area which is really going to grow. It is expected to grow $34 billion by 2025 out of the total $265 billion which is expected by 2024 for public cloud spaces. So it's a big opportunity for our telcos to literally move up the value chain and move from colo to IaaS to PaaS and to SaaS by very, very thoughtful collaborations and looking at industry verticals and the relevant use cases in those verticals where they have some great presence with the customers and they have already got some relationships going. They have to pick their battles very, very clearly, and every telco will have a different battle to fight because the ecosystem is so huge. One company or one set of collaborators may not be able to address the entire ecosystem. So it's a very, very clear game they have to play, and they have to be very, very upfront strategic about that game. And if they are playing that game correctly, there'll be a lot of money to be made over the next 5 to 10 years. That's my message.
I think very well said, and there is a huge opportunity which this new re-architecture is throwing up. and telcos have to seize the opportunity which they missed out in the earlier occasion. And who better can summarize this than somebody from the telco himself? So Pallavji, your final say, and please summarize everything because you
exactly.
are the guy putting everything together.
Yeah, so Himanshu, you very correctly said, it's a need of the hour, that how you should see basically the 5G aspect, which consists of a lot of requirements, and especially to tap this market from the subscriber base towards to the industry 4.0. That's where we need to play a very important role. It's need to be seen very specifically which use cases are in demand, what we need to do, which kind of slicing concepts which we need to create, how we can, bring the 5G core and also the RAN concepts. And RAN, especially
Yes.
when I'm talking about, it's not only the 5G core, but it's also about the RAN, the open RAN disaggregation, which is happening. So we also need to be very careful while choosing this ecosystem and need to see how this RAN aspects coming out from radio resource management, using the right sharing of the spectrum, the backhaul, the core needs to be done very effectively to serve those use cases. Because when you will be going towards to this standalone architectures, you will serving towards to the customers, it needs to be very well defined to the service level agreements, what exactly the each slice expect from the operators. So this is the need of the hour. Obviously the control from the capex opex perspective needs to play a very important role to select the right technologies there.
I agree, Pallav. Just to add before Sukanta takes it, to closure, HP has done a lot of thought around this, and we have come up with new platforms, especially on the RAN side. We realize that the risk mitigation and the business improvement for the telcos and bringing the cost down is of equal importance. And when you're moving away from aggregated, environments of NEPs to disaggregated environments with the network functions virtualization and SDN, and now going forward into SD-WAN, it is important that whatever infrastructure or COTS hardware you want to take, it has to be blueprinted, it has to be validated, designs have to be tested in the labs with the associated vendors. For example, HP works with Intel, Mellanox, and the likes, and AMD's the world, to see that whatever x86 generic hardware is coming to you, it is able to perform the duties of the telco environment carrier grade to the best of its abilities. I think that's a place where we have also focused very heavily. And along with that, I think just to give a 2-minute pitch on what we have done, I think HP's infrastructure value proposition revolves around open RAN solutions, and we are partnered in the open RAN community. The flexible consumption models with HP GreenLake, where you pay as you grow, and that is the need of the hour, because with 5G coming in, not every telco would want to really put the all eggs in one basket with a huge investment. So you can pay as you grow, just like you go and buy a cloud. So that service is available with HP, along with software solutions like open manageability with our ODIM, software tools, and our orchestration tool and service assurance tools, and the 5G core now available as a service under GreenLake by HP. I think we have a lot to offer to the market to see that as a infrastructure provider and software provider for 5G, you can leverage HP and to the best of its abilities, and see that we build a very, very solid foundation for the 5G, both SA and NSA.
Bangshuji, thank you so much for that. And I think we are obviously completely out of time. And I would like to thank all my esteemed panel members. And I want to thank Cyber Media, Voice and Data for giving me the opportunity to moderate this very important session. And thanks to all of you.
Thank you, Sukanta.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.